They dropped off another stained box at the apartment with the red curtains. Nobody ever opens the door, but by nightfall, the box always disappears. I lived across the alley. I never saw the tenant. Not once. But I'm pretty sure they were watching me. This was last year. I'd just signed a lease on a third-floor apartment in an old brick building downtown. The place wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I liked how quiet it was. My unit faced the back alley, and across the way was another building. Same layout, same window placement. My kitchen window looked straight into theirs. That's when I noticed 3B, the only unit with deep red curtains. Thick velvet-looking things, always drawn shut. They never moved, not even once. I didn't think much of it for the first few days. The whole place had a kind of closed-off vibe. Lots of tenants kept to themselves. But something about that window felt different. Too still, too deliberate. It started with the boxes. Every couple days, delivery guys would drop off large packages at the door to 3B. Amazon, FedEx, USPS, sometimes 3 or 4 a week. I started noticing the condition of the boxes. Creased, crushed, or damp like they'd been leaking. One had dark streaks up the side and a faint yellow crust near the tape. Another looked like it had been refrigerated but was room temperature by the time it arrived. The delivery guy knocked once, waited 10 seconds, and walked away. And every single time, the box would be gone by night. But no one ever opened the door. Eventually, I started keeping track. Sometimes I'd look out the window and spot the delivery within minutes of drop-off. I'd watch and wait. No footsteps, no shadow under the door, no sound. And yet, later that same evening, it would vanish. One day I brought it up with my upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Ellison. She said, "Oh, 3B? They've lived there a while, but I don't think I've ever seen them, not even once." She thought for a moment and added, "Come to think of it, I've never seen anyone from that unit take out trash." That stuck with me. Everyone in the building used the same dumpster out back, and I passed it almost every day. But I never once saw someone from 3B carrying anything down. And from across the alley, you'd expect to notice something. A flicker of light behind the curtain, a silhouette passing by, maybe even a window cracked open in the summer. But with 3B, nothing. I told myself to drop it. Not my business. Some people live differently, and that's fine. Maybe they were a night nurse. Maybe they just worked from home and liked their privacy. I didn't need to invent some creepy narrative. I went a few days without looking, focused on work, tried to live my life. But every now and then, I'd pass through the kitchen and feel it. That tug. Like something behind the red curtain was waiting for me to glance up. One morning, I left early for work and saw 3 broken-down boxes leaning inside the trash enclosure, all marked for 3B, all heavily stained. I took a closer look. One had a shipping label that had melted in the rain. Another had black marker scrawled across the top. "Keep frozen. Do not open." The bottom of the largest one was warped and sagging. There were rusty brown smears across the flaps, already drawing flies. I stood there for a while, longer than I meant to, just staring. I took a photo and sent it to my girlfriend. I tried to make a joke of it. "Hope it's just steaks." She didn't laugh. She texted back, "That looks like blood." That night, I stood at my kitchen window for nearly half an hour, watching the opposite building. The alley was dead quiet. Then I grabbed my hoodie, went down the stairs, crossed the alley, and climbed up to 3B. I don't know what I thought I was doing. Maybe just proving it was normal. That someone would answer and say, "Hey, leave my packages alone." I knocked once. Firm. The sound was strange, muted, like something thick was pressed against the other side of the door. No footsteps, no shuffling, just that unnatural quiet pressing back. I turned and walked back fast. Didn't look over my shoulder once. 2 days later, there was an envelope under my door, plain white. No return address, no postage. Just my apartment number, handwritten in a shaky, uneven line. Inside was a single photo of me, standing at my kitchen window, taken from across the alley at night. The angle was off, like it had been snapped while hiding behind the red curtain. You could see just a sliver of it in the top left corner, slightly parted. Enough for a camera lens. I showed the photo to the building manager. He barely glanced at it before handing it back. "Rent's paid on time," he said. "If you're uncomfortable, I'd just keep your blinds shut." I asked him directly, had he ever seen the person in 3B? Not even recently. Ever. He looked at me like it had never crossed his mind. Then he said, "You know what? I don't think I have." After that, I stopped sleeping there, stayed at my girlfriend's place, but I still went back now and then for mail, or to grab things. And every time I found myself standing in my dark kitchen, staring out the window, waiting, hoping to see a sign of life, or a slip. But that curtain never moved, never twitched. It wasn't just still, it felt like it was listening. One night, Mrs. Ellison called me. Her voice was shaky. "There's cops at 3B, a wellness check. Someone must have reported something." The next day, she told me what they found. The unit was completely empty. No dishes, no electronics, no personal items, no signs of anyone living there at all. Just a stained mattress on the kitchen floor and a closet full of shipping boxes. Some were still sealed. The red curtains were nailed into the drywall. I don't know who lived there, or if anyone did, but sometimes I wake up thinking about that photo, the angle it was taken from, how the curtains were just slightly open, and how whoever took it had been watching long before I noticed. At night, whatever we turned on in our house, the house across the street copied it. Lights, TV, even the upstairs lamp, always a few seconds after ours. But we never saw anyone living there. And one night, our kids, Jamie and Ben, said, "They have a Jamie and Ben too." We moved into that neighborhood last spring. Me, my wife Lydia, and the kids. It was a quiet area just outside the city. All older houses built in the 70s, each with its own driveway and front lawn. Nothing fancy, but it felt like a safe, stable place to raise a family. Across the street from us was a nearly identical house. Same floor plan, but flipped, like a mirror version of ours. Everything matched, just reversed. But no one ever seemed to be outside. No kids playing, no adults mowing the lawn. The windows stayed shut, the curtains drawn. At first, we chalked it up to timing. People work odd hours. Maybe they kept to themselves. But then Lydia said something one night that made me stop. We were brushing our teeth, and she glanced out the bedroom window and said, "Weird. They got the same little lamp we have." I looked at her. "What do you mean the same?" She pointed. "Same shape, same size, same exact position, right there in the upstairs window. I turned ours on earlier because I couldn't sleep, and when I looked out just now, theirs was already on too." I walked over to the window. Sure enough, across the street, same window position, same soft amber glow. It even flickered slightly when Lydia switched ours off. I made a joke about it. Maybe we've got a fan club. But I stood there a little longer than I meant to. Something about it didn't feel like coincidence. Then other things started syncing up. The porch light, the hallway light, even the flicker of our TV screen when we'd watch something before bed. I got home late one night, flipped on our porch light so I could see the steps, and across the street, theirs came on too. I turned ours off. 10 seconds later, theirs went dark. I told Lydia about it. She brushed it off. Maybe it was motion activated or a timer set to a similar schedule. That made sense. For a while. But then it kept happening. Over and over. With different lights. Different times. Always just a few seconds behind us. That night I was watching an old sci-fi movie with Lydia before bed. She took the dog out halfway through and came back looking unsettled. "I swear they had the same movie playing," she said. I thought she was joking. The house across the street, the colors flashing behind the curtains, were the exact same as what you were watching. Same rhythm, same scene. But it looked wrong. She said it was completely silent. No audio, just flickering lights mimicking our TV from the other side of the street. We didn't say much after that, but we both started watching the house more closely, looking for anything to break the pattern, some sign that it was just a weird coincidence. But it never slipped. Then Jamie and Ben said it. We were getting them ready for bed, and they were standing by the window, looking across the street. I was about to pull the curtains shut when Jamie said, "They have a Jamie and Ben too." I turned and crouched down next to them. "What do you mean?" Ben pointed through the glass. "They're in the window right now. Same spot we stood in last night when we did the flashlight thing." Jamie nodded. "They have our pajamas too." I froze. "What pajamas?" I asked. Jamie said, "The blue ones with the stars." They were holding hands, just standing still. That night, I left one lamp on in the living room and sat by the front window with the rest of the house dark. I didn't move. Didn't even look at my phone. About an hour later, their front window lit up. Same soft amber lamp, same position, same glow. I stood slowly, walked to the lamp on our end, and switched it off. 10 seconds passed. Then their window went dark too. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling like something was watching us, not through binoculars or cameras. Something more subtle, like they could see what we did just by being. That weekend, I drove to a home improvement store 2 towns over and bought blackout curtains. Didn't tell Lydia why. Just said it'd help with the kids' sleep. We stopped leaving anything on after dark. No porch light, no night light, nothing near the windows. And it worked. At least, for a while. A few nights later, I peeked out between the blackout curtain seams. Their house was dark. Totally dark. No flicker of light. No motion. For the first time since we moved in, it looked completely blank. I stared at it for a long time. It stared back. I should have let it go. But then something showed up on our porch. A box. No markings. Just our house number handwritten on the top. Inside were 6 printed photos, all taken from outside our house, through the windows. They showed us in the living room, watching TV, eating dinner, brushing teeth, all from the past week. But what got me? In every one of them, our curtains were already closed. One of the photos was darker than the rest. Grainier. It showed me, sitting at the window, holding the lamp switch. But the angle was wrong. It wasn't from the street. It was taken from inside our house. We used to joke that we had the best neighbor in the world. His name was Gary. He brought us welcome cookies, took our trash bins out when we forgot, even mowed the strip of grass between our driveways without ever being asked. But now I think he was watching us, from the very first day we moved in. This was 2 years ago. My wife and I had just bought our first house, a 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet cul-de-sac outside of town. It wasn't new, but it had a yard for the dog and enough space to start a family. We were excited, nervous. On move-in day, a man came over while we were still unloading boxes. Late 50s, thin, glasses, slight hunch in his shoulders. "Name's Gary," he said, handing over a little white box tied with string. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Made these this morning." Inside were lemon bars, still warm, He smiled, told us which day trash went out, warned us about the raccoons, and said to let him know if we needed anything. We liked him instantly. For the first couple weeks, he was around a lot. We'd come home and find the packages on our porch had already been tucked inside the screen door. He'd text about storms in the forecast, or let us know if he spotted a strange car in the cul-de-sac. Just keeping an eye out, he'd say. Sometimes I'd catch him in the morning, already outside in his yard, waving with a mug of coffee. We figured he was just retired, friendly, helpful, the kind of neighbor you hope for. Then the welcome basket started. Every Sunday morning for nearly 2 months, we'd find something on our porch: banana bread, homemade jam, candles, little notes like, "Enjoy the weekend," or "Made too much again." It was generous, but it started to feel like we were being monitored, like he always knew when we were home. Once we left town for 3 days, got back Sunday night, and a fresh basket was already waiting on the porch, still warm. That same week, our dog started barking more at night. Always at the side fence, always just after midnight. I checked the yard twice and didn't see anything, but one night I thought I heard something. Maybe the crunch of gravel, like someone stepping off the side path. The next morning, Gary waved to me from across the yard. "How's the dog sleeping these days?" he asked. I paused. "Why?" He just smiled. "Heard him last night. Real protective, huh?" It wasn't just the dog. One evening I was walking back from the mailbox after dark and saw Gary standing in his window, arms at his sides, no lights on in the house, just his outline in the glow from the street lamp. He didn't wave, didn't nod, just stood there, facing our house. The next day he was cheerful again, offering coffee cake, chatting about the weather. The switch was always jarring, like two versions of him that never existed at the same time. That weekend, I checked the side gate and noticed it was unlatched. We always kept it bolted. I mentioned it to my wife, but she thought maybe the wind had pulled it open. Then I found footprints in the dirt by the back window. Just one pair. Standing still. Facing the house. I didn't sleep much that night. Next day, I installed motion lights and bought new locks. Didn't mention it to Gary. But the following morning, he casually asked, "You get all that hardware from Home Depot or Lowe's?" He was watching. I just hadn't figured out how close. A few nights later, I came home late from work. My wife was out of town, and the house was dark. As I stepped onto the porch, I noticed something behind the welcome mat, tucked just under the corner, a flash drive. There was no note, no label. I plugged it into my laptop inside. There were 3 files on it. The first was a photo of our bedroom, taken through the blinds. You could see the bed, the edge of the dresser. The angle was high, like from a ladder or extended pole. The second was a video. It showed Gary outside our window, around 2 or 3 a.m., holding a small digital camera and just watching. He didn't move, didn't film anything else, just stood there and stared through the glass for nearly 6 minutes. The third was also a video. It wasn't of me. It was of my wife, sleeping. She was alone. I'd been out of town that night. The camera wasn't filming through glass. There were no blinds. It was inside the room, filmed from the foot of the bed. I went to the police. They took it seriously, especially that last video. Officers came to our house, took statements. They questioned Gary the same afternoon. He denied everything, said he had no idea what we were talking about, claimed he didn't even own a flash drive. "I just try to be neighborly," he told them. "Some people take it the wrong way." For a few days after that, things were tense. He stopped coming out of his house. No more baskets, no texts, no waves from the yard. I kept expecting him to retaliate somehow, to deny harder, to threaten legal action, to act angry. But he didn't. He just disappeared. We'd see the light on in his house sometimes, but never him. No movement behind the curtains, no cars in the driveway. Weeks passed. Then a for sale sign appeared in front of his house. A few days after that, a moving truck pulled up. I watched through the blinds, but never saw who loaded it. By the end of the day, the sign was gone, and so was Gary. That was almost a year ago. But every few months we get a package in the mail. No return address. Just a plain brown box, postmarked from different cities. Inside are lemon bars. Always 6, still warm.